There is something quietly eerie about seeing a table full of people, none of whom are talking. Their feet shift, their gaze flicks between phone screens and uneaten food, simultaneously alone and together. I've sat at that table before, and later I've wondered, what is unhappiness? We live in a world that advertised unlimited connection, but delivers emptiness. A world where meals happen with our heads bowed to glowing rectangles, not to each other. In one recent survey, a quarter of Americans reported eating all their meals alone on a typical day, an increase of over 50% in just 2 decades, and those who dined solo reported lower overall life satisfaction. It's not just physical isolation, it's an emotional numbness, a feeling that the person across from you is truly just another algorithm. Scrolling, but never reaching out. We are overstimulated, overconnected, overinformed, yet suffering from the quietest epidemic humanity has known: loneliness. In a 2023 global survey, 1 in 5 people reported feeling lonely, a lot of the day yesterday. In some countries, the rate climbs above 60% among young adults. Yet most sufferers don't call it a crisis, because we've been told suffering is private. There's another crisis underneath this one, the meaning gap. Viktor Frankl called it the existential vacuum, a sense of purposelessness, boredom, and despair that leaves people feeling empty despite abundance. We may have luxuries, but not life. We may have 10,000 songs at our fingertips, but not one that sings to our soul. In 2024, the United States fell out of the world's top 20 happiest countries for the first time since the happiness report began in 2012. Younger generations reported the steepest decline, a wave of restlessness beneath the surface of comfort. So why the unhappiness? Let's walk through the shadows of modern life. It starts with the illusion of more. We've been sold the ideal that money or material success equals happiness, but research says the spark fades fast. Income helps up to a point, but once basic needs are met, more wealth adds less and less satisfaction. Behavioral scientists call this the Easterlin paradox. More money doesn't buy more happiness over time. Even worse, as possessions grow, empathy shrinks. Studies show that increased wealth can distance people from compassion and reduce sensitivity to others' emotions. At the same time, chasing more possessions leaves less psychic energy for love, creativity, or quiet contemplation. We also face a new phenomenon called existential isolation, a sense that we are essentially alone in our experience, that no one truly understands our inner world. Even in crowds, we feel separate. Researchers link this form of isolation to lower sense of purpose, lack of belonging, and increased anxiety. And technology fuels this. Social media lures us in with the promise of connection, but what it delivers are highlight reels and performance pressure. Studies from Stanford, McLean Hospital, and others confirm that heavy social media use correlates with increased anxiety, depression, sleep disruption, and dissatisfaction with life. Teens themselves increasingly admit that social platforms harm others, even if they feel personally immune. The dopamine hit from likes fades fast. Comparison creeps in instead. Our emotional lives are outsourced to screens, and our deeper needs go unmet. We scroll, then feel empty, then scroll again. The reward becomes the scrolling, not real fulfillment. We've also lost meaningful rituals. A few decades ago, people shared meals, ceremonies, community gatherings, places where time slowed and souls felt anchored. Now, time fragments. Americans spend less time in kitchens and at dinner tables. Connection declines, loneliness rises, linked not just to depression, but to poor physical health and premature death. But it's not just modern society doing this to us. The way we think adds to it. Our brains grew from tribal roots, waiting for signals of safety, belonging, identity. Now they receive 24/7 news, network alerts, meaninglessness. The primitive brain gets swamped, but the cultural mind doesn't give permission to feel overwhelmed. So we keep working, scrolling, pretending. Many of us also repress our emotional experience under a veneer of optimism, self-help, or toxic positivity. We tweet, "Just woke up grateful," while our chest feels empty. We fear sincerity as weakness, so pain gets boxed up, unprocessed, recycled in anxiety, insomnia, or numbed by distraction. In some philosophies, this is described as a form of existential anxiety, the human struggle with meaning, purpose, isolation, and mortality. Psychotherapists like Yalom argue that most unhappiness comes from not confronting these drama lines of life: death, freedom, isolation, meaninglessness. We survive on autopilot, avoiding them, but the cost is a persistent ache we don't know how to name. Another layer: our culture prizes autonomy and achievement, but often at the expense of relatedness and creativity. We've swapped meaningful work for efficiency. We've traded spontaneity for productivity. Our stories shrink. We become consumers, not creators. Daniel Gilbert's research shows that humans adapt quickly to gains or losses. We become satisfied, then bored. We raise the bar for enough. It's called hedonic adaptation. This explains why new cars, new homes, or promotions rarely lead to lasting happiness. It's quickly normalized. So far, we've traced unhappiness through disconnection, overstimulation, meaninglessness, comparison, and adaptation. But there's a softer undercurrent: the lies we tell ourselves. Lies about meritocracy, about needing to look okay, about what others think. Lies about self-worth tied to achievements. We internalize these so deeply, we cannot see them until we look. Yet underneath, most people yearn for more than they have. Not more stuff, more quiet, more belonging, more flow, more awe, more meaning. We are, in many ways, a species built for happiness, and always looking for it in the wrong places. We exist in the thin space between what we have and what we long for, and that's where unhappiness thrives. But there is another reality many forget. Unhappiness does not need to last forever. To move beyond it, we must do more than seek surface pleasure. We must build depth. One of the most powerful sources of lasting well-being is connection. In the Harvard study of adult development, nearly a century long, researchers found that people with warm, supportive relationships were not only happier, but lived significantly longer and healthier lives, regardless of wealth, IQ, or social status. This doesn't mean accumulating friends, but nurturing quality ties, rituals of conversation, validation, shared space without phones, and vulnerabilities spoken aloud. The baseline of ease, trust, and belonging becomes the soil in which fulfillment grows. Fulfilling emotional needs often comes not from more stimuli, but from simplicity. Sharing meals, for instance, is a surprisingly powerful happiness indicator. A recent Gallup-funded study showed that people who eat most of their meals alone report lower life satisfaction at the same rate, even lower, than those meeting basic financial thresholds. Rituals like these are not trivial. They anchor us in presence. Another wellspring of fulfillment is meaning. Viktor Frankl coined the term existential vacuum to describe the modern crisis of purpose, an emptiness not relieved by distractions, but only filled by deeper engagement. His method, logotherapy, teaches that meaning emerges through creating something of value, loving someone unconditionally, and choosing one's attitude when suffering is unavoidable. When you anchor your life in these three domains, work, relationships, and intentional suffering, you cease to drift aimlessly. Still, meaning alone isn't enough if we remain fragmented. That's where ritual becomes medicine. Modern science confirms that symbolic, repeated actions regulate emotions, reduce anxiety, and foster social trust. Whether it's lighting a candle before writing, pausing before meals, or walking every morning without technology, rituals ritualize resilience. They sharpen your emotional compass and drag you into being even when resistance rises. The emptiness of modern life also owes itself to how quickly pleasure fades. Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert showed that lottery winners and accident victims report nearly the same happiness after 1 year. Due to hedonic adaptation, we rapidly return to a baseline, regardless of gains or losses. The antidote is not perpetual novelty, but gratitude nested in ritual, naming sacred moments, honoring small wins, and pausing instead of scrolling. These practices build depth into daily experience. Modern unhappiness is amplified by overstimulation. The mind was never designed for 24/7 access. Signals flood in, meaning dwindles. As a result, emotional experience gets pushed down while the intellect keeps scrolling. To break this, we need discipline of attention, boundary hours without screens, daily silence, walks, and creative work that bypasses the narrative mind. When the world is too loud, listen first. Internal belief systems also carry weight. Many of us live beneath invisible ceilings. The lie of constant productivity, hyper-competitiveness, narcissism as success. These ideas are recycled in the mind until replaced with intentional values: presence over speed, humanity over efficiency, humility over certainty. As one philosopher wrote, we are our stories, and rewriting them is how we heal. Healing unhappiness requires facing existential anxiety, not avoiding it. Logotherapy teaches that suffering is not the exception, but the rule, and that confronting it with dignity can reveal purpose, even in tragic circumstances. Life is limited.